So let's talk about some examples of fiscal policy in action. Now, there's been other times when people have had, when the country has undergone fiscal stimulus plans. For example, in the 1960s, the 1980s, Ronald Reagan was known as a tax cutter. A lot of college students were not around for that, but the one we've all lived through is the 2009 stimulus. And so, like I mentioned before, it was $787 billion, which is huge as a percentage of the economy. And so the idea is that the government cut taxes, and the big one that consumers felt was the Social Security tax cut. Now that's different from income tax. It's what we pay towards our retirement account and Social Security, but that little tiny percentage meant a little bit of extra money for everybody's paychecks. And remember, aggregate or added up demand, $10 times millions of workers adds up to real money. But that's the tax cut side. The spending side, one big thing that people talk about is infrastructure, which is roads and bridges and other things that basically help people get around. They wear out over time, they need to be replaced. And so one idea is to rebuild roads and bridges, puts money in construction workers' pockets, gives construction workers jobs, boosts employment directly, but construction workers spend money too. And so other businesses should be boosted as well. Right? Now I talked a little bit about high-speed rail. This is sort of politically controversial, and you'll see that some states declined the money because they didn't want to lend, or they didn't want to borrow money for these projects. But the idea is that not only does it take engineering skills and raw materials to build rail networks, it actually gets people to work quicker. And so high-speed rail actually, it makes the economy more productive in the long run, but also increases people's employment today. So those are sort of two examples. Now, you could go on, you could talk about other things that the government does in terms of direct spending as well. One other thing I'll quick mention is green energy, which means that science and technology going into energy efficient businesses. And so, generally speaking, the best effective fiscal spending is for things that help people not only get jobs today, scientists and engineers, maybe people building solar panels, maybe people installing solar panels. That's short-run spending. But in the long run, if you can run an economy with less energy, or you can get to work quicker, or you can have more roads and bridges to the place you want to go, that means that overall production in the economy is improved. So a lot of the best fiscal spending probably involves long-term investment in addition to short-run employment. Right? So that's the kind of projects that get put around. Now, one sort of historical example, if people look back to the Great Depression, one thing that I always point out is that if you drive down the street in any direction from here, you can drive down Foster and go to Gompers Park. Always look at the old building at the park. Generally speaking, this was built in the 30s. The Great Depression and all the policies that President Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, put forth, and a lot of these involved building buildings, building dams, and you can still see a lot of those buildings, the big stone buildings, in existence at parks. And that was designed to put people to work at the time. It also made the park a nicer place. Now, again, it's not free. The money has to be borrowed. And so a lot of people will turn down this spending. But if you view these all, you can see around us what exactly the government is spending money on. Part of the reason they do that is to create jobs for people. All right. Now, politically speaking, in the U.S., some people like tax cuts more, some people like spending more, and the 2009 stimulus plan actually had both tax cuts and spending increases. So that way you could get both Democrats and Republicans to vote for it. And so politically popular to get both sides, both points of view. And so the stimulus plan that we've all lived through has both spending increases and tax cuts. So that is the idea, that the fiscal policy is less used, it's costly, it's very difficult to get through Congress, and finally, it's slow.